Hi, good morning, Diana.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to my
Jay.
podcast.
Yeah, I really enjoy being here, and I think it's an honor really to participate in this series.
Thank you for our listeners. This is a special series. In the coming weeks, I'm going to interview 5 guests from Association Netherlands China. You are my first guest. And could you please give our listeners a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lianne Baaij. I'm 55 years old as of tomorrow. Um, I'm a sinologist, so I studied Chinese way back in 1987. I started my studies in Maastricht, which was more like a translation academy. And then I followed my studies in Leiden University, where I did sinology. And as of my graduation, I went to work for several jobs, all, of course, having to do with China, amongst others, being a sales manager at China Southern Airlines, but also being a PR manager in a travel agency, working in a translation agency as an employee. Yeah, and I founded my company China Access in 2004, so 20 years celebration next year, which is a training and translation and interpreting agency for China business.
Yeah, thank you so much for your introduction. Of course, next to all of this, you did many other things, other projects, but we will get into it later on. What I have felt, most of people are triggered by something to started to go to China or learn Chinese language. What inspired you to engage with China and to learn Chinese language?
Yeah, I think I fell in love with Chinese culture at a young age. I think I was like 17 years old or something, and I decorated my room with Chinese calendars and things from the toko, and it really triggered me, the characters, all the cultural outings. So knowing that I liked this so much, I joined a course on television. It was called Ni Hao. I really liked that course a lot. And after that, I decided, okay, this triggers me so much. I want to make it my studies. And my father then said, because it was like 1988 or 1986, sorry. So my father said, how are you going to earn your money? And fortunately, my mother said, just follow your heart. That will come
Wow.
around. So, I'm happy I decided to study Chinese because, following that amazing country from the 80s, it's
Yes.
quite a privilege, I think.
And you followed your heart and you went to study the Chinese language and you accompanied all kinds of people, entrepreneurs and people from a government to China. And you did many high-level interpretation sessions. You are a very professional interpreter, especially when you started your own company. And this is one of your main services. I'm just curious, what makes a good interpreter?
Yeah, being an interpreter is needs skills. Of course, you need to be fluent in your language, but you need to be skilled to do the interpretation job, because I know many people who speak maybe better Chinese than me, but are not as good in interpreting, because you have to develop a kind of a highway between the two languages in your head, so that you can really quickly transpose. So this craftsmanship, I would say, you need to develop. Of course, you need to prepare yourself really well, because you get into all kinds of industries, going from filters to the court to slaughterhouses. It goes all all about all different areas. So you need to prepare for the vocabulary, and I think the last. Most important ingredient in my case, I think, is trying to be empathetic. So understand really not only the words, but also the agenda behind it, and the maybe even the feelings behind the message of the person that you interpret for, so that you can also bring across more than just words, but also more like a emotional inputs.
Yeah, brilliant. I think what you just said is really so important. You must be able to feel the message behind the words, and I think that makes the interpretation even more powerful. It's not just translating the words; it's also transmitting the emotions and connections. You are helping people to make this deep connection so they can build relationships and do business together. That's so important. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just curious how how companies can really prepare themselves, can work closely together with you before the interpretation session to make this session even more successful.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you addressed this point, because being an interpreter sometimes to a customer is just a secondary thing. Oh yeah, of course. Oh, we also need an interpreter. Let's book an interpreter and that'll do the job. But that's not the case. You really need to involve this interpreter in the briefing. And as an interpreter, you need to be proactive to get all the information you have and be on the same page as the person you work for. So as an example, sometimes people call me and I'd like to, they ask me to do a bad news conversations toward the supplier, for instance, because quality was off track. But then I always first have a conversation with the customer to see, what happened before. And then sometimes you find out that the persons didn't even meet before, didn't see eye to eye, or not through Zoom. It was just a very cold relationship. And then there's a risk if you jump in with a bad news conversation that this contact will be harmed. So in that case, I try to take a step back and let's see, maybe we can first have a more like a chit chat or a more soft content encounter with the counterpart. Well, as an example. So I really try to think along in the process that they're in. And I really, sometimes I'm a pain in the ass to get the materials that I need to translate, like the PPTs or the speaking notes. And because without good preparation, you cannot do the job well.
You went to China with all kinds of delegations, business delegations, also government delegations. And do you feel a huge difference as an interpreter to interpret such kind of sessions?
Yeah, for government, there's more status and face involved. So it's more, protocols are more important, and giving the right gift is important, and addressing it very diplomatically is more important. And addressing the right person, being on the same level is more important. So there is a difference, I think, in that aspect, because mostly when I did the government delegations from a vocabulary point of view, it was not really difficult. It was just explaining the status of the region and addressing some issues, and so no technical or hard specialized words. But it's the tone of voice that was important to bring across. And also to not feel overwhelmed by the welcome and the hospitality of the Chinese in these big halls, and the thrones that they have in these big halls, and All the press being there, and the lineup. Well, I think the government sessions, how they are. And as an interpreter, you go and sit behind the flowers, which are placed between the two thrones. It's quite a different setting also, and the setting and the pressure of doing this for quite high level persons. I mean, ministers or governors, they really have power. So this stress is, you must be able to handle.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. That's you must have a much better emotional management and to stay calm with such a lot of eyes looking at you and focused on you and your words. At China Access, you also help a lot of companies translate a lot of documents. Yeah, Chinese characters, they are so different and so difficult to learn. How can you learn Chinese characters effectively?
Yeah, I of course learned it old school because we were in the 80s at that time. So no apps, and so I made my own flashcards on paper,
Yeah.
But I think learning Chinese, the first 2 months maybe are amazingly difficult because everything is new, all the sounds, the characters, the tones. I remember learning Chinese. I had like a muscle ache in my cheeks because of all the sounds that I had to practice. But also, you get to see the system behind the characters. So that makes it easier to learn. And the tones you get familiarized with. And once you have mastered these three elements quite well, so the pronunciation actually, and then the system behind the characters, then it's not that difficult anymore because grammar is really simple. That's not challenging at all, and it's just a matter of repeating and rehearsing and mastering your vocabulary. And it's a lot of work, but it's not difficult. I remember I had these flashcards. The ones I knew were in my right pocket, and the ones that I always forgot were in my the other way around pocket. And then at the bus stop or over lunch or whatever that moment, I just repeated these these difficult characters again until they were in the right pocket again. Don't be afraid to use it because once you have only a basic level of Chinese, you can already say things, and practice as much as possible and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
This is such a great point, I think, Liana, because I learned Dutch. For
Yeah,
me,
an
just
excellent job you did there.
thank you, thank you. But this is the essential part, I think, of learning second language. You must dare to use it, because only by using it and practicing it just shamelessly and forget about your ego, everything, just make mistake and try to use it, then you will get better and better. Only by doing that you will get better, because only by reading and just by listening you will never build that proficiency of the language. Only by using it, I
Yeah,
think.
and you'll be amazed by the response because people are always happy that you use their language. It's an you invest in their language. They really appreciate that. Yeah.
By learning Chinese and by grasping the Chinese language and be able to communicate with Chinese people, does this process really enrich your understanding of Chinese people, Chinese culture, and in what kind of ways?
Going into a society or into a country, from inside out, really, because you master the language you get deeper into the understanding of the people and the culture. you can read Chinese sources. So I don't only read what's in our newspapers, but I can also see what the Chinese read, also in these difficult times. Geopolitical speaking, but also on a personal level, it's so much easier to really come to the heart when you can let people speak in their own languages. And that's why interpretation is such a valuable job, because they can really express themselves in their own language and then express themselves better than they could have in English. And yeah, making that bridge is something real nice.
You also give a lot of intercultural training. What kind of challenges they mostly have when they come to ask for your help? Lianne, please give us a intercultural training because we are struggling with this and that. And what kind of struggles they have?
Yeah, we always do an intake before we design the training, let's say. And it all comes down, no matter what industries they are, it all comes down to the same components. So we do tailor our trainings, but the basic content is really, to explain to Dutch people how Chinese mindset works. For Chinese, it's really natural to be agile and adapt to changes and be quick and go back one step or jump ahead 3 steps. This is flexible way of moving in processes. That's something it's not in our DNA. We are linear thinkers. We have structures, we have plans, and that's something that doesn't match real well. And also, the speed of things in China that the Dutch people don't really cope with real well. Yeah, they are careful. They want to analyze and they want to think through every step on the way. Whereas in China, you just start. The speed of things you have to go along with, otherwise you miss the boat in China. And sometimes the Dutch people who are working with China, they know and they are able to adapt in a sense, but their whole team of colleagues and their bosses, they don't understand. And you have to have backup from your internal organization, of course. And that sometimes also is a struggle.
Those cultural differences can really cause a lot of conflicts and problems for organizations to work with China. You gave not only the in-company sessions, intercultural training, but you also created e-learning together with Lianne. Could you please give some introduction about China trainers and about your e-learning program?
The China Trainers was born over COVID, where we could not do live trainings. So Lianne Kranenberg and me, we sat down and what we would do in front of a group, we just created e-learnings from that. So small e-learnings of half an hour to understand the yes and no issue in China, or reading between the lines, these communication issues, half hours e-learnings, or bigger to understand the historical perspective of China, that's 2.5 hours, or the philosophers, which philosophers made the mindset, created the mindset of China, to really understand the root of it all. So all kinds of business culture related e-learnings we did in front of a green screen and this whole procedure. So we have a nice set of e-learnings to learn certain issues online. And we also do the webinars. So we have fixed dates on which we do 1 hour webinars, also on business culture. Yeah, that's
okay.
Well, it helped us come through COVID, but it also helped us to cut up issues to isolate issues and then go into these issues in more depth.
I think this is also a very flexible way for companies and for employees to get to know about the cultural background and how to do business with China. And you and Lianne have really explained many aspects of doing business in China, the history and everything, and what kind of people can really benefit from this e-learning. If you look at the Dutch companies or organizations.
Yeah, I would say mostly the business people, of course, because we address it from a business point of view. The practices and examples that we raise are also from a business angle. And then medium, small sized entrepreneurs from that aspect, but also professionals working in a Dutch-Chinese working environment, preparing for your trip, preparing for a long stay, preparing for your cooperation with your counterparts, or doing a strategic decision. All these steps and purposes. Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds really interesting. So people can find all of the information the China Trainers.nl or .com. .com. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So people can go to chinatrainers.com to find all of the information.
Yeah.
I will put the link also in the show notes so people can find it also there. And I also want to mention another project which is also very fascinating, and I want to explore that project with you. It's your Dutch cultural challenge game and the Chinese cultural challenge game. You also created this game together with Lianne and other two people. And I'm a really a game player, so I love games. So why did you decide to create this game, and how does a game work?
Yeah, we have a team of 4 female entrepreneurs. So me, Lianne Baaij, as you said, and Monique Groeneveld and Esther Jansen. We are all intercultural trainers specialized in China. And we were doing trainings for years and years in the old-fashioned way with PPTs and exercises and discussion and role play, all the elements you have there. But we thought creating a training in which you really can experience the doing the business more along the lines of Confucius saying, "Learn by doing."
Yes.
I know I always forget the exact expressions, but I do and I understand is the last bit of his expression. That's a very good way of learning another culture. So we designed the China Culture Challenge and the Dutch Culture Challenge as a gamified training. So people go into teams. They play 3 rounds. Each round starts off with a small lecture, like 20 minutes lecture, to give them the input and the knowledge that they would need to do exercises, or solve a business case, or win a quiz, or do a battle, all kinds of ways of testing that knowledge. And by doing these assignments well, they earn money. And with the money, they can buy building blocks. And at the end of the training, who has the highest skyscraper with all these building blocks is the winner. But in between, there are all kinds of game-changing elements. Like with Monopoly, you have Kans en Algemeen Fonds. I don't know how is that in English, but you have these game-changing cards. So we also have that. There can be a government interference where you lose all your money all of a sudden, or there's a tax new rule. China can imply all of a sudden new rules, and then you have to have some room to adapt to that. And some teams, they just spend all their money on these building blocks, and then they get this game-changing element, and then they have to sell their building blocks again to adapt to that. So yeah, it's quite a vivid and fun game.
Yes.
And yeah, all the elements, the lectures and the assignments and the game-changing elements, they're all based on real life. We take them from business practices. So in that way, they are more into this world, I think, of doing business with China. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really fun and interactive and immersive as well. And what kind of typical Chinese culture elements did you put in the Chinese Culture Challenge game? And what are the key elements of the Dutch culture you integrated in the Dutch version?
Yeah, we try to give quite a wide scope of elements because they need to learn the full picture. So we start off with mindset, and then we do communication and cooperation as a block, the 3 rounds we have.
Yes.
And then we have business surroundings, so all the stakeholders and sketching the business working field, let's say. So in that way, we try to cover all the elements, not just focusing on a few key things. And it goes the same for the Dutch version, of course.
I think if you design such a game, you must have a certain idea about what kind of a characteristic of the Dutch culture I want to help Chinese learners and game players to grasp and to feel. And what are those characteristics of Dutch culture you brought into the game?
For example, we focus on equality. That we are all the same, on the same level, and that we're used of addressing our boss with his first name, or that the boss is really part of the team. We also tackle the no nonsense attitude of Dutch people, just saying what you need and being the direct person you are. We tackle lots of elements actually, but I think these 2 maybe stand out. But we try, as I said, sketch the whole framework. Also the historical perspective that we are a young country. The criticism that we welcome, saying out loud what you did wrong, and really welcome all the constructive criticism in order to do it better next time. These things.
Those elements are so really contrasting our own culture. We strive for harmony. We don't speak up, and we have such a kind of hierarchy. So I think these elements are very important.
Some dimensions, cultural dimensions, are really at the end of each scope, let's say. They're really contrasting, but we also find it important that you understand why China has a favor for hierarchy and harmony, and why we are being direct, why we prefer that. So we go back to the Greek and the Romans, and we go back to Confucius and Lao Tzu to really address the roots of each other's mindsets.
It sounds really, really great. So this game is for a minimum number of people, or what kind of setting?
We have teams in order to have the competition, but also within the team to learn from each other. So minimum would be like 6 to 9, and maximum like 25, 30 people. So we make more teams then in that aspect. Sometimes we do it because we are with 4, we can do it simultaneous. So if you have a group of 100 people, then still we can do that.
Does this game take a very long time to play?
If you play the full version, it would take you 1 afternoon. But we also have a light version with less assignments. In the big version, we give each team their own assignment. And in the light version, everybody does the same assignment, so that covers less time. That would be like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
So people can find information about those games on your website or a separate website?
Yes. Yeah, but we also have our own dedicated website, Dutch Culture Challenge and the ChinaCultureChallenge.com. Yeah.
Okay, so the Dutch Culture Challenge and ChinaCultureChallenge.com. And this will be added as the show notes. Just as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a series of the members who are involved with the Fiancé Association Netherlands China. Yeah, I want to ask you some questions about your role at Fiancé and why you started to play a very active role at Fiancé. What's your why behind this decision?
Yeah, there was COVID. There was no work. There was room to do things I normally wouldn't do because there was no delegations coming, no translations. Well, not nothing, but it went down to 30%. So I had a lot of time available. And at the same time, VNC, I address it as VNC, Vereniging Nederlands-China, also changed their chair. And you've interviewed the new chair already, Monique Knapen, so you know yourself how an inspiring lady this is with all kinds of plans. And when I met her at some network, I got excited to help. Because meanwhile, of course, COVID widened the gap between the Netherlands and China, and also the whole geopolitical situation was not improving the relationship. So there was less and less understanding and more negative sentiment towards China, and also all the government relations that were stopped, and all these signals that we were losing touch of each other. That were a motivation for me to jump in the VNC and do work that could improve this relationship and this understanding between the countries. So I said to Monique, I'd like to join, and with me a lot of others. There was a whole new board, 2 consistent board members, which I'm really happy with too. But also fresh blood and fresh energy to revive actually the VNC.
If people are interested, you can go back to find the podcast with Monique. And she has really a lot of ideas, and all of you, the new boards, you initiated a lot of new activities. I think in this year, the China Cafe, which you initiated how many years ago? 15 years ago?
2007,
16 years ago. And China Cafe also integrated into the VNC activities. And could you please share something about China Cafe and the activities of VNC?
Yeah, the China Cafe is celebrating its 16th anniversary, as we just calculated. And all this time it has been a platform or a meeting point, let's say, for people who are on a daily basis working professionally with China. At the moment, we try to organize 4 China Cafes a year. In the past, we had it every month. So we organize it regularly in order to bring these people together around one certain theme. We also have a speaker on that team. So next Monday, December 11, we will have John van der Water of Next Architects, who will talk about the real estate situation in China, which is a very important factor for the economy of China as a whole, to understand the whole bubble issue and all the struggles that the industry is facing, but also the opportunities who are still there. So we have each time another theme, and then we have an interview of this expert of half an hour, something like that. We don't try to make it that long, and it's just on a bar seat and nothing really official. And then it's time to meet all the people that came and have a drink and talk about China and your issues with peers who have the same background. That's what the China Cafe is about. So networking, but also knowledge sharing. And on a very low profile way, just put your jeans on and go.
Yeah. It's a very relaxed setting, and you will meet a lot of, just like you said, China peers who are also having the same struggle, challenges, but also love China or doing business with China. So you can find really some board.
Of course, there's also a large percentage of Chinese people present, more and more, I would say. So it's a very nice setting to level with your peers. Yes.
Before we wrap up the podcast, could you please share some practical advice and tips for people who want to do business in China, engage with Chinese people, and want to be successful?
I would say educate yourself, prepare yourself, and more important, maybe also educate your team and your boss on the Chinese culture and the Chinese ways of doing things. And then especially, I would say this changing, agile, flexible way of working is, I think, the biggest hindrance. And if you can find, I always say, try to find a bandwidth. So a lot of flexibility, but not too much, because you also have your own structures and plans and all that. While talking to the Chinese, coming to this bandwidth is, I think, the best way to go forward, despite all the other cultural dimensional issues. But this is key. And then also explain to your team and your make sure that you're backed up internally, that sometimes you have to make this big swing in processes, and sometimes you have to speed up matters at a crazy speed. So I think that would be my advice.
Your company, China Access, is almost next year, it's almost 20 years. In 2004, you set up China Access, and you have seen so many collaborations happen in all of these years, and you have brought a lot of collaboration partners together. Your knowledge and your experience are really very rich in this field. So thank you so much for coming to my podcast to share your knowledge and your insights with our listeners. Could you please tell our listeners how they can find you and how they can connect with you online?
Well, you can visit my website, which is in China hyphen, so middle score access, ACCESS.nl, or through the collaboration forms that I mentioned during the podcast, ChinaCultureChallenge.com. And as for VNC, VNC-China.nl.
Great. I will add all of the websites in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. And I think you are also on LinkedIn. And
I will give you my LinkedIn and WeChat, of course. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And I think when we have this whole series of 5 VNC board members, you will have a more wide picture of what we do, but also what is important to work with China and what is fun to work with China. So
Yeah,
thank you for the
certainly.
opportunity to make this series also.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed this great conversation with you.
Likewise.